got everything. Got my orphanage meal of prune pudding and very dense hearty bread. I'm ready to read the compiled letters of Jerusha Abbott to Mr. Daddy Longlegs. Oh. Prune pudding is sweet. Not in a nice way. Too sweet. Okay. 215 Ferguson Hall, 24th September. Dear kind trustee who sends orphans to college, here I am. I traveled yesterday for 4 hours on a train. It's a funny sensation, isn't it? I never rode in one before. It seems queer to be writing letters to someone you don't know. It seems queer for me to be writing letters at all. I've never written more than 3 or 4 in my life, so please overlook it if these are not the model kind. Before leaving yesterday morning, Mrs. Lippett and I had a very serious talk. She told me how to behave all the rest of my life, and especially how to behave toward the kind gentleman who is doing so much for me. I must take care to be very respectful. But how can one be very respectful to a person who wishes to be called John Smith? Why couldn't you have picked out a name with a little personality? I might as well write letters to Dear Hitching Post or Dear Clothes Prop. I have been thinking about you a great deal this summer. Having somebody take an interest in me after all these years makes me feel as though I'd found a sort of family. It seems as though I belong to somebody now, and it's a very comfortable sensation. I must say, however, that when I think about you, my imagination has very little to work upon. There are just 3 things I know. 1, you are tall. 2, you are rich. 3, you hate girls. I suppose I might call you Dear Mr. Girl Hater, only that's rather insulting to me. Or Dear Mr. Rich Man, but that's insulting to you, as though money were the only important thing about you. Besides, being rich is such a very external quality. Maybe you won't stay rich all your life. Lots of very clever men get smashed up in Wall Street. But at least you will stay tall all your life. So I've decided to call you Dear Daddy Longlegs. I hope you won't mind. It's just a private pet name we won't tell Mrs. Lippett. The 10 o'clock bell is going to ring in 2 minutes. Our day is divided into sections by bells. We eat and sleep and study by bells. It's very enlivening. I feel like a fire horse all of the time. There it goes. Lights out. Good night. Observe with what precision I obey rules due to my training in the John Grier home. Yours most respectfully, Jerusha Abbott. Well, if she's not in the orphanage anymore, I'm really not going to eat this nonsense. Ooh, this is a nice fat one. 10th October, Dear Daddy Longlegs. Did you ever hear of Michelangelo? He was a famous artist who lived in Italy in the Middle Ages. Everybody in English literature seemed to know about him, and the whole class laughed because I thought he was an archangel. The trouble with college is that you are expected to know such a lot of things you've never learned. It's very embarrassing at times. I made an awful mistake the first day. Somebody mentioned Morris Metterlink, and I asked if she was a freshman. That joke has gone all over college. But anyway, I'm just as bright in class as any of the others, and brighter than some of them. Wednesday. Dear Daddy Longlegs. I've changed my name. I'm still Jerusha in the catalog, but I'm Judy everywhere else. It's really too bad, isn't it, to have to give yourself the only pet name you've ever had? I didn't quite make up the Judy, though. That's what Freddie Perkins used to call me before he could talk plainly. 25th October. Dear Daddy Longlegs. I'm in the basketball team, and you ought to see the bruise on my left shoulder. It's blue and mahogany with little streaks of orange. Julia Pendleton tried for the team, but she didn't get in. Hooray! You see what a mean disposition I have. College gets nicer and nicer. I like the girls and the classes and the campus and the things to eat. We have ice cream twice a week, and we never have cornmeal mush. Ooh, ice cream sounds good. P.S. I know I'm not to expect any letters in return, and I've been warned not to bother you with questions. But tell me, Daddy, just this once. Are you awfully old or just a little old? And are you perfectly bald or just a little bald? Ooh, this one has a picture. 19th December, Dear Daddy Longlegs. You never answered my question, and it was very important. Are you bald? I have it planned exactly what you look like, very satisfactorily, until I reach the top of your head, and then I am stuck. I can't decide whether you have white hair or black hair or sort of sprinkly gray hair or maybe none at all. Here is your portrait. But the problem is, shall I add some hair? Would you like to know what color your eyes are? They're gray, and your eyebrows stick out like a porch roof. Beetling, they're called in novels. And your mouth is a straight line with a tendency to turn down at the corners. Oh, you see, I know, you're a snappy old thing with a temper. You wouldn't believe, Daddy, what an abyss of ignorance my mind is. I'm just realizing the depths myself. The things that most girls with a properly assorted family and a home and friends and a library know by absorption, I have never heard of. For example, I have never read Mother Goose, or David Copperfield, or Ivanhoe, or Cinderella, or Bluebeard, or Robinson Crusoe, or Jane Eyre, or Alice in Wonderland, or a word of Rudyard Kipling. I didn't know that Henry VIII was married more than once, or that Shelley was a poet. I didn't know that people used to be monkeys and that the Garden of Eden was a beautiful myth. I didn't know that RLS stood for Robert Louis Stevenson, or that George Eliot was a lady. I had never seen a picture of the Mona Lisa, and, it's true, but you won't believe it, I had never heard of Sherlock Holmes. Now I know all of these things, and a lot more besides, but you can see how much I need to catch up on. And oh, but it's fun. I look forward all day to evening, and then I put engaged on the door, and get into my nice red bathrobe and furry slippers, and pile all the cushions behind me on the couch, and light the brass student lamp at my elbow, and read and read and read. One book isn't enough. I have 4 going at once. Just now they're Tennyson's poems and Vanity Fair and Kipling's Plain Tales and, don't laugh, Little Women. Those sound good. Okay, so that was Tennyson, Vanity Fair, Kipling, and Little Women. All right, what else, Judy? I find that I am the only girl in college who wasn't brought up on Little Women. I haven't told anybody, though. That would stamp me as queer. I just went quietly and bought it with $1.12 of my last month's allowance, and the next time somebody mentions pickled limes, I'll know what she is talking about. Goodbye, Daddy. I hope that you are feeling as happy as I am. Yours ever, Judy. P.S. Don't forget to answer my question. If you don't want the trouble of writing, have your secretary telegraph. He can just say, Mr. Smith is quite bald, or Mr. Smith is not bald, or Mr. Smith has white hair, and you can deduct the 25 cents out of my allowance. Sunday. Dearest Daddy Longlegs, I have some awful, awful news to tell you, but I won't begin with it. I'll try to get you in a good humor first. Jerusha Abbott has commenced to be an author. A poem entitled From My Tower appears in the February Monthly on the first page, which is a very great honor for a freshman. My English instructor stopped me on the way out from chapel last night and said it was a charming piece of work except for the 6th line, which had too many feet. I will send you a copy in case you care to read it. Let me see if I can't think of something else pleasant. Oh yes, I'm learning to skate, and can glide about quite respectably all by myself. Also, I've learned how to slide down a rope from the roof of the gymnasium, and I can vault a bar 3 feet and 6 inches high. I hope shortly to pull it up to 4 feet. We had a very inspiring sermon this morning, preached by the Bishop of Alabama. His text was, Judge not, that ye be not judged. It was about the necessity of overlooking mistakes in others, and not discouraging people by harsh judgments. I wish you might have heard it. Now for the news. Courage, Judy, you must tell. Are you surely in a good humor? I failed in mathematics and Latin prose. I am tutoring in them, and will take another examination next month. I'm sorry if you're disappointed, but otherwise I don't care a bit, because I've learned such a lot of things not mentioned in the catalog. I've read 17 novels and bushels of poetry, really necessary novels like Vanity Fair and Richard Feverel and Alice in Wonderland, also Emerson's Essays, and Lockhart's Life of Scott, and the first volume of Gibbon's Roman Empire, and half of Benvenuto Cellini's life. Wasn't he entertaining? He used to saunter out and casually kill a man before breakfast. So you see, Daddy, I'm much more intelligent than if I'd stuck to Latin. Will you forgive me this once, and I promise never to fail again? Yours in sackcloth, Judy. Oh, brother. The Ides of March. I am studying Latin prose composition. I have been studying it. I shall be studying it. I shall be about to have been studying it. My re-examination comes the 7th hour next Tuesday, and I am going to pass it or bust. So you may expect to hear from me next, whole and happy, and free from conditions, or in fragments. I will write a respectable letter when it's over. Tonight I have a pressing engagement with the ablative absolute. Yours, in evident haste, J.A. 26th March. Mr. D. L. L. Smith. Sir, you never answer any questions. You never show the slightest interest in anything I do. You are probably the horridest one of all those horrid trustees, and the reason you are educating me is not because you care a bit about me, but from a sense of duty. I don't know a single thing about you. I don't even know your name. It is very uninspiring writing to a thing. I haven't a doubt but that you throw my letters into the wastebasket without reading them. Hereafter, I shall write only about work. My re-examinations in Latin and geometry came last week. I passed them both, and am now free from conditions. Yours truly, Jerusha Abbott. 2nd April. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I am a beast! Please forget about that dreadful letter I sent you last week. I was feeling terribly lonely and miserable and sore-throaty the night I wrote. I didn't know it, but I was just sickening from tonsillitis and grip and lots of things mixed. I'm in the infirmary now, and I've been here for 6 days. This is the first time they would let me sit up and have a pen and paper. The head nurse is very bossy. But I've been thinking about it all the time, and I shan't get well until you forgive me. Here's a picture of the way I look, with a bandage around my head like rabbit's ears. Doesn't that arouse your sympathy? I'm having sublingual gland swelling. And I've been studying physiology all the year without even hearing of sublingual glands. How futile a thing is education. I can't ride any more. I get shaky when I sit up too long. Please forgive me for being impertinent and ungrateful. I was badly brought up. Yours with love, Judy Abbott. The Infirmary, 4th April. Dearest Daddy Longlegs, yesterday evening, just toward dark, when I was sitting up in bed looking out at the rain and feeling awfully bored with life in a great institution, the nurse appeared with a long white box addressed to me and filled with the loveliest pink rosebuds. And much nicer still, it contained a card with a very polite message written in a funny little uphill backhand, but one which shows a great deal of character. Thank you, Daddy, 1,000 times. Your flowers make the first real true present I ever received in my life. If you want to know what a baby I am, I lay down and cried because I was so happy. Now that I am sure you read my letters, I'll make them much more interesting, so they'll be worth keeping in a safe with a red tape around them. Only please take out that dreadful one and burn it up. I'd hate to think that you ever read it over. Thank you for making a very sick, cross, miserable freshman cheerful. Probably you have lots of loving family and friends, and you don't know what it is to be alone, but I do. Goodbye. I'll promise never to be horrid again, because now I know you're a real person. Also, I'll promise never to bother you with any more questions. Do you still hate girls? Yours forever, Judy. 8th hour, Monday. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I hope you aren't the trustee who sat on... I hope you aren't the trustee who sat on the toad. It went off, I was told, with quite a pop, so probably he was a fatter trustee. What else do we have here? After chapel, Thursday. What do you think is my favorite book? Just now, I mean, I change every 3 days. Wuthering Heights. Ooh, that sounds good. Emily Bronte was quite young when she wrote it and had never been outside Haworth churchyard. She had never known any men in her life. How could she imagine a man like Heathcliff? I couldn't do it, and I'm quite young and never outside the John Grier Asylum. I've had every chance in the world. Sometimes a dreadful fear comes over me that I'm not a genius. Will you be awfully disappointed, Daddy, if I don't turn out to be a great author? May 27th. Daddy Longlegs, Esquire. Dear Sir, I am in receipt of a letter from Mrs. Lippett. She hopes that I am doing well in deportment and studies. Since I probably have no place to go this summer, she will let me come back to the asylum and work for my board until college opens. I hate the John Grier home. I'd rather die than go back. Yours most truthfully, Jerusha Abbott. Cher Daddy Jambon, vous êtes un brick. Je suis très heureuse about the farm parce que je n'ai jamais been on a farm dans ma vie, and I'd hate to retourner chez Jean Grier et wash dishes tout l'été. There would be danger of quelque chose affreuse happening parce que j'ai perdu ma humilité d'autre fois et j'ai peur that I would break out quelque jour and smash every cup and saucer dans la maison. Pardon pour éviter et paper. Je ne peux pas send de mes nouvelles parce que je suis dans French class. Et j'ai peur que monsieur le professeur is going to call on me tout de suite. He did! Au revoir, je vous aime beaucoup, Judy. I have been walking and talking and having tea with a man, and with a very superior man, with Mr. Jervis Pendleton of the House of Julia. Her uncle, in short. In long, perhaps I ought to say. He's as tall as you. Being in town on business, he decided to run out to the college and call on his niece. He's her father's youngest brother, but she doesn't know him very intimately. It seems he glanced at her when she was a baby, decided he didn't like her, and has never noticed her since. Interesting. Another tall man who hates girls. What a coincidence. Mr. Pendleton reminded me a little of you, Daddy, as you were 20 years ago. You see, I know you intimately, even if we haven't ever met. He's tall and thinnish, with a dark face all over lines, and the funniest underneath smile that never quite comes through but just wrinkles up at the corners of his mouth. And he has a way of making you feel right off as though you'd known him a long time. Lock Willow, July 12th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, how did your secretary come to know about Lock Willow? That isn't a rhetorical question. I am awfully curious to know. For listen to this. Mr. Jervis Pendleton used to own this farm, but now he has given it to Mrs. Semple, who was his old nurse. Did you ever hear such a funny coincidence? September 25th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, behold me, a sophomore! I came up last Friday, sorry to leave Lock Willow, but glad to see the campus again. It is a pleasant sensation to come back to something familiar. I am beginning to feel at home in college, and in command of the situation. I am beginning, in fact, to feel at home in the world, as though I really belonged in it, and had not just crept in on sufferance. 17th October. Dear Daddy Longlegs, supposing the swimming tank and the gymnasium were filled full of lemon jelly. Oh, that sounds good. Supposing the swimming tank and the gymnasium were filled full of lemon jelly. Could a person trying to swim manage to keep on top, or would he sink? We were having lemon jelly for dessert when the question came up. We discussed it heatedly for half an hour, and it's still unsettled. Sally thinks that she could swim in it, but I am perfectly sure that the best swimmer in the world would sink. Wouldn't it be funny to be drowned in lemon jelly? Have you ever read Hamlet? If you haven't, do it right off. It's perfectly corking. I've been hearing about Shakespeare all my life, but I had no idea he really wrote so well. I always suspected him of going largely on his reputation. 6:30 Saturday. Dear Daddy, we started to walk to town today, but mercy how it poured. I like winter to be winter with snow instead of rain. Julia's desirable uncle called again this afternoon and brought a 5-pound box of chocolates. There are advantages, you see, about rooming with Julia. Our innocent prattle appeared to amuse him, and he waited over a train in order to take tea in the study. And an awful lot of trouble we had getting permission. It's hard enough entertaining fathers and grandfathers, but uncles are a step worse. And as for brothers and cousins, they are next to impossible. Julia had to swear that he was her uncle before a notary public, and then have the county clerk's certificate attached. Don't I know a lot of law? And even then I doubt if we could have had our tea if the dean had chanced to see how youngish and good-looking Uncle Jervis is. Anyway, we had it with brown bread Swiss cheese sandwiches. That sounds good. Good for you, Judy. This looks way better than that orphanage food. Prune pudding, indeed. He helped make them, and then ate 4. February 4th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, Jimmy McBride has sent me a Princeton banner as big as one end of the room. A romantic rival. What are you going to do, Derby? March 24th, maybe the 25th. Listen to what has happened. Jerusha Abbott has won the short story contest, a $25 prize that the monthly holds every year, and she a sophomore. The contestants are mostly seniors. When I saw my name posted, I couldn't quite believe it was true. Maybe I am going to be an author after all. And lastly, Julia and Sally and I are going to New York next Friday to do some spring shopping and stay all night and go to the theater next day with Master Jervy. Suck it, Princeton. And what do you think we're going to see? Hamlet! Think of that! Think of that! Master Jervy, wherever did you get that idea? We've studied it for 4 weeks in Shakespeare class, and I know it by heart. I am so excited over all these prospects that I can scarcely sleep. Goodbye, Daddy. This is a very entertaining world. Yours ever, Judy. P.S. I've just looked at the calendar. It's the 28th. I think we'll stop there because I don't want to spoil the book, but we are going to try writing a letter ourselves. First, though, I can get a snack. Let's write a letter. This quill. Very fancy letter. Oh, look at how much ink I already have on me. All right, what's the date today? July 19th? 19th. Yesterday was my niece Ava's birthday. Happy birthday, Ava. All right, so Judy would start out, Dear Daddy Longlegs. But I cannot do that. The word daddy has been sexualized so much that I just cannot use it. So we'll think of a different name. Father. Lengthy limbs. Not quite right. Dear Pappy Spider-Gams, here I am at except I don't actually know a Pappy Spider-Gams. I'll start over. I like that I'm using the fanciest pen with the not fanciest paper. At least it's college ruled. It's not wide ruled notebook paper. We're not savages here. So just it. Dear you. I feel like I'm in a Ken Burns documentary. Like I should be scrolling down the letter. Dear Pa, it's wholesome heroin season. And I'm learning all about how to write a good letter from Jerusha Abbott. I don't know what accent that is. Boy, is that a boring letter. More ink on my hands. These are messy, my dudes. All right. July 19th. Dear you. That's supposed to be a leaf. It's not very good. It is hot. Hot! Too hot. Suspiciously hot, if you ask me. Though no one did. God, this is worse than the other ones. We'll get it. We'll get it. Dear you, I've spent a very toasty week inside, huddled around my air conditioner reading, and studying the art of writing a fine letter. It's not as simple as one might think. You can't expect merely to pick up a pen and scribble out a missive that will charm and delight. It takes practice. What's more, there are rules. For example, 1. Set the scene. It feels much more personal if the reader can feel as if they are there with you as you write. Number 2, use your own words. I do not mean that you need to watch out for plagiarism, although that is a constant worry for the busy yet conscientious letter writer. What I mean is put your personality into what you write. Letters are conversations that aren't interrupted with another person's response, so take advantage of this chance to shine. Number 3, illustrations are always nice, like this. That's me, suffering in the summer heat. Number 4, don't make it too long. I've always had trouble with this one, as any of my very forgiving correspondents will attest. But take my advice, then, and keep it snappy. Number 5, let your reader know how much you care. After all, isn't that the point of handwriting a letter? Text and email are nice enough for their respective purposes, but how much more effort it takes to find a pen and some paper, write out all your silly little thoughts, draw a picture, fold it up, stuff it in an envelope with a flower or some stickers, track down the address of the person you're sending it to, address the letter, seal it all up with a big smooch and maybe a wax seal, and then track down the mail carrier personally so you can bribe them to deliver your letter with a little kiss on the forehead. Well, that was confusing. The bribe is money, or any other good they may want. But they have to deliver the letter and give the recipient a kiss. To answer, it takes a great deal of effort. Too much. I am tired now. Go away and let me sleep. Write back soon. Your friend, me.